VIBErations podcast, part 29, Jill Marshall. Hi, I'm Gary Brightman, and this is my bi-weekly podcast called VIBErations. Established in 2018, Vibe is a book and music shop situated in Mui Wo on Lantau Island in Hong Kong. So, what's been happening at the shop over the past couple of weeks? On Saturday the 3rd of July, we had our second Tiny Desk gig of the year, thanks to Ryan McManamy and Will James. They gave a storming 1-hour set of their own brand of alt rock and indie covers. It was broadcast live on Facebook and is now available on our YouTube channel, live at Vibe HK. Subscribers are very welcome. If you're interested in performing a Tiny Desk gig at Vibe one Saturday, then please contact me on the usual channels, or come and see me at Vibe on a Tuesday, Friday or Saturday. As I mentioned in my last podcast, Ginger and Tiger, two of the very famous Hong Kong canto pop band Mirror, filmed at the shop recently, and it was aired on View TV 2 weeks ago. Since that time, we've welcomed 10 to 15 Mirror fans to the shop every single day to have their photos taken with the signed limited edition CD box set, which I was given by the band of 12 popsters. You can watch Mirror on their YouTube channel of the same name, along with the other 162,000 subscribers, 6,000 of which have now been in contact with us at Vibe via Facebook. The Vibe version 2.0 reboot is ongoing, with new stock appearing all the time and a cleaner, more organised shop. Many thanks to Eslin Terragina of Tails Animal Rescue fame. We still have one more trick up our sleeve, which will be a UK-themed chill-out room. More on that in future podcasts. The England football team made their first appearance in a final since 1966, which I can barely remember. I'd gotten used to waking up at 3 a.m. to watch all our qualifying games. However, the last kick of the game saw England as runners-up to Italy in the Euro 2020 final. Hugely disappointing, but next year is the World Cup and I'm an eternal optimist. So, more hurt to come then. And so to this week's interview, the third of our 3 Scotland connected interviews. Jill Marshall is the owner of Pause Pilates studio and healing centre in Mui Wo, where she is a long-term resident. She is herself a Pilates instructor and has been sharing this work with people for over 20 years. She is also a yoga and Nia teacher. Nia is spelt N-I-A and is another form of movement training which is fun and uplifting for people. She is a student of hypnotherapy and is a Reiki Master and practices other healing modalities such as the BodyTalk technique. These are available at her studio along with many other classes. With other local professionals, she teams up to bring healthy living to the Lantau community and to Hong Kong residents through her popular Healthy Day retreats. She set up the studio and later Pause Cafe. Pause is both a statement and a place for people to slow down to avoid the burnout effects of stress. She was raised in Hong Kong by her Scottish parents, but was born in London, where she lived for the first 7 years. She loves learning new skills and is fascinated by the human mind and body complex. She thinks being a mum is a privilege and loves her daughter Chloe, who she raised on Lantau. Her area of expertise is in improving posture for optimal physical function and teaching about core activation to all populations to relieve or prevent joint pain. In particular, back pain, using the techniques she has studied and the Pilates equipment at her studio. She specialises in working with women during and after pregnancy and during menopause. Welcome to Vibe, Jill.
Thanks, Gary. Great to be here.
And as we do, we'll go straight into the 10 questions.
Okay.
So the first question is, favourite book or author?
I'm going to go with Rohinton Mystery, A Fine Balance.
Favourite musical artist?
I'm torn between Madonna and Pink Floyd, but I'm going to go with Pink Floyd.
And do you have a preferred drink?
I do. My favourite drink in the whole wide world is a really good chai tea.
Any particular sort of brand or that you use or that you sell in Pause maybe? I don't know.
No, we're working on how to make a good chai in bulk.
Okay.
So my favourite chai in the world is made by my yoga teacher.
Okay.
And I guess in India you get the real deal as well. But, it's getting the balance of all the spices that are in there, right?
Yeah.
And the quantity of the milk and the tea. But, yeah, a good chai is not to be missed.
Unbeatable. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Nice choice. Do you have a life motto?
I think my life motto is to trust myself and follow my heart.
And I think that's exactly what you're doing with Pause, isn't it? That's
It
what it
is.
seems to be.
Yeah, it is definitely following my passion.
Good. Do you have a favourite Hong Kong walk?
I love the walk from Tung Chung to Tai O. That's my favourite.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
On the
that's
coast,
a nice
those
one.
beautiful beaches.
Yeah. Okay, do you have a favourite Hong Kong restaurant?
I don't actually have a favourite Hong Kong restaurant. Too many to choose from. I used to love Lucy's and Stanley. I wonder if that's still there. Lucy's and Stanley was wonderful, and my whole family loved it, so we'd always go there for birthdays.
Faced with a python while walking up to the peak, what would you do?
Snakes is my biggest phobia, as is for many people that.
Yeah, mine too.
I can't imagine. I think I would freeze, but
Yeah.
the truth is I'd probably just run away as fast as I can.
Yeah, yeah. What was the best advice you were ever given?
To never give up, because anything is possible. But another one that someone said to me is, see life as art. And I love that. Sometimes I just look around as if I'm in a gallery.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one, actually. Finish this sentence. I live in Hong Kong because...
I live in Hong Kong because I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's my choice to stay here. But originally I came to Hong Kong because my family moved here.
Right.
So it wasn't originally my choice, but of course now it is. And it's just, it's a vibrant city. It's all my history and memories from childhood are here. And yeah, I just love it.
Yeah, you see it as home.
I do.
What's your favourite area of Hong Kong?
At one point, I was a freelance English teacher, and I went to these schools in all different areas of Hong Kong that
Yeah.
I hadn't actually necessarily been to before growing up here. I don't know, I love some of the parts of Kowloon City. Absolute
Yeah.
favourite, though, still has to be Mui Wo.
What brought you to Hong Kong in the first place, and when was that?
In 1980, my parents packed up from London, and
Yeah.
my dad got a job with the government here in the legal department.
Okay.
So myself, my sister and my younger brother all came over with my parents, and started off living for about 6 months in the Hong Kong hotel at the time in Tsim Sha Tsui. And we moved over to Old Peak Road, raised in the mid-levels, and very different than my memories of childhood is the house in London, and then from age 7 it was living in a tower block.
Whereabouts did you live in London, first of all?
Near Kentish Town, Tufnell Park.
The smells, the heat. Did it hit you? Did you realise the difference?
I think I did realise the difference, yeah. I think we started at primary school eventually on the Peak, and so
Right.
our trip would take us on the Star Ferry, followed by the Peak Tram,
Oh,
followed
sounds
by
idyllic.
a short walk. Yeah, so that's a completely different world. I think in London we usually walked. We had the local school. We
Yes.
just walked to school. So yeah, getting all these different forms of transport, and I always remember the for some reason we always took the lower deck of the Star Ferry. It's got very
Yeah.
distinct sounds and smells.
Yes, it's got that rumbling of
Yeah.
the thing and a very sort of oily
Oily,
smell,
yeah.
hasn't it? How cool to go to school on the Star Ferry.
And the Peak Tram.
And the Peak Tram, for goodness sake.
As
and
a
then,
form of transport.
yeah, you mentioned your parents were Scottish.
Yeah.
So whereabouts in Scotland were they from?
They're from Glasgow, but they'd already lived in London for about 8 years before I was born.
Yeah.
So we would only go to Scotland to see my grandparents, and there was only one
Yeah.
set of grandparents. So we would always go to Ayrshire, to the coast, to my granny's house.
Nice.
And then we lived in London.
Yeah.
And so neither of them actually have a very strong Scottish accent, unless they're in Scotland, when everyone
Yes.
comes flooding back.
All right, so you find yourself in Hong Kong, 7 years old, you go to school, you work through the school system, no doubt, and you pop out around, 18, 20 years old. What do you do then?
So my first sort of experiences was of waitressing in Lan Kwai Fong and Wan Chai and TST.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so after school I didn't go straight away to UK for education, but I stayed in Hong Kong and
Okay.
worked first
Yes.
in F&B. I love F&B. I love
Yeah.
food, and so that was great.
Yes.
And then I was aware that all my friends from school who had gone away, when they came back, were slightly I don't know, evolved in a different way
Yes.
from their experiences.
Yeah.
So eventually I went to UK and I
Okay.
I lived a little bit in Bristol and then in Leeds, and that was also interesting, going back to UK, feeling a bit of a stranger in my original home.
Yeah.
And, you know, learning more about it, and also living in the south and then living in the north, and
Yeah.
getting
That's
a
stark
flavour
enough as it
of-
is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, south of England versus north, but to plonk in the middle of that, your Hong Kong life. So what age were you when you went back to the UK?
So I must have been 20 when I went back, and
Yeah.
then I came back here when I was pregnant with my daughter Chloe,
Oh,
who's
right.
also a local resident. Yes.
So was she born here
She
then?
was born here just. I was pregnant in UK and I came here to have her.
Brilliant.
Mostly because I wanted my parents near me.
Ah,
So
nice.
I came home.
What happened next?
So then I became a mum, and the gift that is, I eventually, I was very lucky because I lived at my parents' house when I had Chloe. So we were surrounded by constant resources, love, support, basically.
Yeah.
So that was very lucky, and we stayed living at home for some time. First 3 years of her life, maybe 4 years of her life was at home.
Yeah.
And then, but within that time, I started to work. I worked as a publisher as an editor in the English language material at Oxford University Press.
Okay.
So I started off doing that. I'd actually approached them because I wanted to work more in the art and design team, but I didn't have Chinese language, unfortunately, as a requirement.
Yeah.
So they asked me if I wanted to work in editing. And then it wasn't too long before my boss was like, if you do the English language training and become an English language teacher, you can get a promotion. So
Yeah.
I was like, sure. However, after I did that training, I was like, whoa, I don't need to work in an office, I can go and teach. So then
Yes.
I moved into teaching. Once
Yeah.
I'd learned how to teach, it was one of the most valuable lessons ever, learning
Yes.
how people learn and that interaction. I mean, it was so challenging for me at the time, and I was so shy and underconfident at that stage in my life that I just didn't even know how I would possibly pass this, being
Yeah.
out at the front of the classroom, leading a classroom. I didn't have it in my life that I was a leader. So, it was a big challenge.
Yes.
However, picking up those skills and then, moving into teaching really gave me a lot of my foundations. And then after I'd been doing that for a few years, teaching English, I'd really honed the teaching skill, but I did realize that my passion wasn't teaching English.
Right.
So then I looked for, I was working in an English language centre, and I knew though that my days were numbered, that I wanted to look for something else. And it was then that my mum was like, hey, why don't you come to my Pilates class? Pilates, what is that?
Yeah.
And so, my mum was 60 at the time, and I did notice that she looked distinctly, I don't know, trimmer, fitter, better.
Yes.
So she took me to her Pilates class, and I...
Where was her Pilates class?
Where?
Where, yeah.
Yeah, well, she was a member of the golf club, so she was
Yes.
going off twice a week
Yeah.
to her Pilates class.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
She invited me, and then, and it was the first time I'd done a form of exercise where I was like completely engaged the whole time. I wasn't bored, I enjoyed it. I mean, prior to that, I must say I do like swimming, and I did like yoga that I'd also done previously with my mum, but not enough to hook me. But this
Yes.
was like love at first sight.
Right. Okay. So that's set you off on the path that you're on now, really.
It did.
When was that? Are we talking about sort of 1990s, late 90s
Yep.
by this time?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I did my Pilates teacher training soon after that first class. There happened to be a training in Hong Kong that I took, and that was I think that was completed in 2000.
So today you're a fully trained Pilates and yoga teacher.
Yeah, that's right.
Then what are your first moves then into setting up a business, I guess?
Yeah, so that was another big step. So the yoga came later, but at this point I was, qualified in teaching English and Pilates, and I also had a permanent ID card, so that meant I didn't have
Yes,
to...
gold.
Yes, gold,
Yeah.
gold. And by this point, my confidence has grown as a teacher.
Yes.
And I've just switched field. I'm not confident yet, particularly necessarily in human movement and posture, but I have an appetite and I'm passionate.
Yes.
So off I go, and I, start doing one-to-ones at people's homes. Luckily got a small article in the SCMP, which fortunate to have that, and I
Yes.
got clients.
Yeah.
I was just doing home visits, so low overheads, but I started to look at it from a business perspective, and then eventually I got some premises in Central, and I set up a studio, because the Pilates I was trained in uses some equipment, Pilates equipment. A man called Joseph Pilates set up, created the system himself for the human body, for posture, based on his own illness, really. He wasn't well, so he took it upon himself to look for ways to self-heal, and in the process helped others, and then he developed some equipment which he worked out using springs to create resistance rather than weight. So I was doing that in Central, and then I was living in Lantau. Yeah, I don't know at what point it became a dream to have a studio on Lantau, but I remember wanting it for a while before it happened, and then, you know, like sometimes, like often in life, it happens all suddenly, spontaneously. You know, I walked past the antique shop that I'd walked past a million other times, saw it was empty, phoned my friend's mum, who I know lives, local Chinese lady that lives here for many years, and also has had properties herself. And she's like, yeah, I know the owner. It's just on the market. You know, it just happened very quickly, and I couldn't fathom doing this on my own. But I don't know if you remember, there was a wonderful yoga teacher here called Dougal Meacham. He left a while ago, but anyway, we joined forces. At that time, I was Pilates, not yet yoga, but I was yoga in training, and he was an amazing yoga teacher. And so we joined forces, and you know, we pretty much looked at the premises and took it straight away.
Which is where you are now, is it? On the corner by the resort?
Yeah, and you know, when we first went in, I mean, it was almost heartbreaking to tear it out to put in a studio, because it had all the walls with the little boxes with the little ring. If I'd
been open then, I would have shipped all that down here.
I have to let go. The past is in the past.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I'm like, gosh, if I could have preserved it.
Yeah, no, needs must. I understand. Okay, so that would have been what, around 2010 now, 2011, I think. Exactly. I remember you opening there.
I think it's 2011.
2011. From that point, Pause Cafe pops up.
Yep, again, vision I had long before it actually came into existence. Yeah. You know, when I said earlier I waitressed, my first job was waitressing in an Indian restaurant, and you know, I have this strong connection with India, like you said about Hong Kong before when we were chatting. That sometimes you just have this like invisible thread to a place.
It just clicks.
So I went to India, fell in love with India, came back to Hong Kong, got a job in an Indian restaurant, and then no surprise later that I would love yoga and Indian philosophy. But so you know. I just love food. That comes from my family as well. We're all foodies. So and then I love health food and being healthy. I've been very unhealthy, and I've been very overweight in my life in the past. So I've had this experience of using food and exercise to moderate, balance my well-being. You know, and I know what it's like to be very unhealthy and also mentally unhealthy. And
because it goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
And you know, I've myself had bouts of depression in my life, so you know, using food as medicine and movement as medicine is really, you know, actually when you ask me my life motto or whatever, it should be that. Food as medicine, movement as medicine. So anyway, it was a dream to have a place. And I know that in Lantau at that time there wasn't anything like it as well. So from a business perspective, it, you know, it could work in that way, but But you know, I had tried to do something small in the studio, within the studio, but it wasn't. I knew there were licensing rules and stuff, and it wasn't really going to be my real vision. So, you know, and I just loved the building. So I don't know for listeners if they would know, but it's a beautiful old building.
Oh yeah,
and it's really a heritage. And
well, I remember when it was sort of at one stage it was boarded up for many years. They're like old hutongs in a way, aren't they? With that sort of loft space, cock loft in them, nice tall. And it seemed forever that they were derelict, and then all of a sudden they seemed to gut them and do the right thing. I felt they whitewashed them, and they were just such a fabulous little parade of shops in like a little lovely quiet leafy part of Mui Wo opposite the playground. It's a beautiful spot,
right near the beach, and the banyan tree.
And the banyan tree. Yes. How old is that? 150 years maybe.
Let's find out. It's just beautiful.
So that location is brilliant, and seems to me, I talk to a lot of people come into the shop here. We talk about Pause Cafe, and everybody has praise for it. Yes, it has a very good reputation. Yeah.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, people say it's such a nice, relaxing space. The food and drink is good, and they enjoy it. And I've been there, and I enjoy it as well. It's
Well, thank you. It's a real labour of love, and it's a family business as well. So I knew I had the vision. I didn't have the vision of how it would happen. I knew I wanted to have something where you could relax, peace of mind, peaceful space with good food, healthy, and fresh ingredients. I knew that, but I just didn't know how to get that.
Yeah,
do
yeah.
it. Had no idea how I was going to do this.
Yeah.
And then, in the end, at some point along the journey, my brother and my daughter and her boyfriend got involved, and really, it's my daughter who, and the team. It's the whole team. The chef and the staff. The whole. It's lovely. It's a family atmosphere. I mean,
yes,
blood relatives and our friendly family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say we have Pause Studio, or Pause Pilates Studio with yoga. We also have a lot of dance and movement. So we have sort of a dance floor, and also healing centre, I would say, because we have guest practitioners. Where myself, I'm actually a Reiki practitioner as well, but more, I would say, guest practitioners in the healing realm, like craniosacral and the Ayurvedic doctor. For now, we're using the multi-purpose space of the studio by the river on the other side, where we can have it as a fully equipped Pilates studio. We can have groups or small groups or one-to-one. And then the way I have it, the way the number of pieces of equipment I have, the way I can pack it away is quite impressive. So that there's still enough for a small group of dancers or yoga mats, yoga or meditation.
Do you have a format that let's take a sort of typical week at Pause?
We have something every morning, and a few weeknights, and then weekends. We have activities. We've started doing day retreats on the weekends, mostly on Saturdays, actually to help people from the city have the opportunity to come to Lantau and have the name Pause is just perfect. I mean, so they can come over and they don't have to think. They'll have a whole day of activities at the studio, a variety between movement, meditation, and then we go to the cafe, have lunch, and then they come back to the studio and finish off with maybe a guided hypnotherapy meditation. So anyway, they have this full packed day of healing at the studio. Nice. And
that's
the
the
cafe.
Saturdays?
Yeah, not every Saturday right now. We're just testing it out. So it'll be monthly, maybe twice a month, and then maybe eventually it'll be every weekend.
Yeah. So it would be like, so people could book as they would do a spa day, as they do in the hotels over in TST and Hong Kong side. They could have an island, a Lantau island spa day equivalent with Pause.
Yeah, it's going well. The feedback's great. You
Good.
don't have to think about anything, and we have such great practitioners.
How would you structure, or how do you structure those days? How do you start first thing, and how do you go through the day? How long is a day?
So we've experimented with a few, and the first one we had 2 activities, lunch, and then 2 activities, and we make the activities fit around that. So we'd start off with like a healing yoga, get grounded, arrive in the session, a little bit of chat, get to know each other, and then we'd have more of a moving session, maybe a dance with breathing, something like that. Something a bit unusual as well. And then we'll break for lunch, and we found that lunch wasn't long enough. I gave 90 minutes, but it wasn't enough. We needed more because everyone enjoyed chatting and getting to know each other.
Yeah, it's all part of it, isn't it?
And then there's a new connection, and you've already chilled out enough, and you've really in the day by then. So then in the afternoon we come back and we'd have 2 more activities, and one more active, not as active as before lunch, as we digest.
Yes.
And then finish with a meditation, a guided hypno meditation, very powerful.
Okay.
And then the second one we had 5 activities, so we added on something else.
Yeah.
Maybe even as simple as like sitting in a circle, weaving together, like moving meditation, dancing. So dancing be a bit more active. Learning about the breath, using the breath to calm the nervous system. Yoga, there's so many styles of yoga, so on a day retreat it may be a very relaxing one, or maybe a little bit more vigorous. I work actually a lot with people with joint pain, mostly backs, but also could be knees or hips, wherever. But that's in the Pilates world. That's, you know, in that realm of my work. I do work with a lot of physical ailments.
Okay, and you mentioned something there, hypnotherapy. What does that involve? How long does that take?
So I've personally, actually, I love hypnotherapy. I've had hypnotherapy sessions for myself to quit smoking, and also around my phobia of snakes.
Well, that's two I need straight away.
Come on down.
Yes.
Yeah, I work with a few hypnotherapists actually, and I'm in training myself because I love it. I think it's amazing. All it involves for you is to lie down and, well, usually lie down or sit in a comfy chair and let your body relax, and that's actually all you have to do. It definitely helps if you believe that your subconscious is powerful and can be spoken to.
Yes, okay.
It helps.
All right.
With the result, if you have less resistance. Often people who like to be in control of everything find it a little harder.
Hard to let go.
Yeah, it definitely still would work, but you may need more sessions, I believe, but not necessarily.
Do you give these sessions?
I don't. I'm training. I've just started my training because I think it's something I'm actually training because I'm just really interested in it. I don't know if I would ever become a hypnotherapist as a practitioner or not, but I work with 3 hypnotherapists, and they all have a different style, but they all get great results. It's looking at the root, right? It's going to the root of the problem. Yeah. And even with the body work I do teaching Pilates, you know, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. What caused that sore knee or whatever? You know, we don't always know the root, but using hypnotherapy, I think you can often get to the root cause of the problem very easily, and it doesn't take any effort from the patient.
It strikes me that there's probably a whole list of things that we can book Pause for, and you will either put us in touch with the right people to use on your premises, or you directly yourself provide those services.
So Pause is a space or a place where people can access these various modalities. So in that sense, I feel like I'm almost Pause is almost like a health solutions, and that I'm almost like an agent for my practitioners in some sense. Yes, so you can go to the website and book from our menu of options.
Right, okay.
You know, I'm just so lucky to be able to collaborate with those people. It is through Pause. We have got it set up as a business so that it's through Pause website that you can access these practices and practitioners.
What's the Pause website?
It's pause.hk.
Can't be that hard, can it? You've got VIBEHK and you've got pause.hk.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I think you're also on Facebook as well, similar gig.
Yeah, we are. We're on Facebook. To book classes and sessions, people head to the website for classes, and also to make a booking they can email from the website. There'll be a form, they can book through that, or often people just contact us by phone, and the phone number's on the website. Okay.
Brilliant. And I guess they can just go to the cafe, have a cup of coffee, decide to change their life or cure a problem, and ask your daughter or brother, put me in touch with Pause.
Yeah, that's a nice synergy that, you know, was always part of my vision, was that that they'd support each other naturally, that people who go to that cafe would also be interested in what's over the other side of the river, and vice versa. And that's just beautiful to see that actually happening. I have had people come to classes and they're like, I was having a coffee, saw the little advert in the menu for the yoga class. Just one more thing, because you asked me, you said, is there mainly these 2 things, you know, the studio and the cafe? And, you know, when I think about it, it's like, there's the studio and the healing center wellness part, working with other people, and the cafe, my own practice, of course, of teaching. But also, I just want to mention that we set up a charity as well.
Okay.
And so when I think of it, I think of Pause in 3 parts. One is the studio and all that goes there, the cafe, and then we set up a Pause cause where we do some fundraising and use the funds. 100% of the funding goes to providing studio practices like yoga and education around health and wellness for underprivileged populations. That's also just all on the website, but it's something that we started, and you know, the local community. So we would provide yoga for Love 21 Foundation, the Hong Kong Society for the Protection of Children, Hong Kong migrant workers, Maggie Centre, which works with cancer. You know, with all the people that are already set up, we just provide services for them.
Okay, nice.
And we pay the teacher out of our funding.
Very good, very noble. I think that's a fantastic thing, and that's all about the community thing that we try and do here in Mui Wo, I think. It just remains for me to say, Jill, thank you very much for coming.
Oh, Gary, thank you so much for inviting me. I love it here in your bookshop. It's just, it's just so serene. It's been a perfect pause for myself today to be with you.
You can listen to all our Vibrations podcasts published on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Amazon Music, TuneIn and Alexa, Stitcher, Listen Notes, Player FM, SoundCloud and a few others. Or you can watch on our YouTube channel under Live at VibeHK, or follow the links from my website at vibehk.com. Our opening and closing music is from my good mate in Tong Fuk on Lantau Island, Pete Millwood. It's called Green Island Dub by Celestial and is on the Retrospect vinyl album. On sale at Vibe. Finally, a reminder that Vibe is open 7 days a week, every day of the year, from 12 noon until approximately 6:30 p.m. Well, that's it for another week. Thanks for listening to the 29th Vibe Book and Music Shop podcast called VIBErations. I'm Gary Brightman. You get my vibe?
Can you imagine what this old island must have looked like to those Dutch sailors when they first saw it? Fresh green. Like a dream of a new world.
They must have held their breath. Afraid it would disappear before they could touch it.